So, hi, I'm Julia, and we'll introduce ourselves in a second. But we're doing this presentation on the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And we are the president and vice president of the Feminist Action Club. And we're doing this presentation just to raise awareness. Well, I'm Julia again. I'm the president. Oh.
And then I'm Jessica. I am the vice president.
Great. Just before we begin, we just wanted to do a trigger warning. We do mention not all, but many types of violence, and so we just want to warn people about that. Today we'll be going over the background, so the history behind violence against women and kind of how it was and laws, things like that. And then we'll be going over how it is today, so current problems women are facing and continue to face. And then we'll go over the options for victims that are facing all these types of violence and how we as the community can help. And if you have any questions, Kelly, please stop us at any time and ask. Oops. All right, so first we'll go over the background. As a brief history of women against rape. So in 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted. In Article 2, it recognizes that regardless of sex, everyone is guaranteed equal rights and freedoms. Obviously, that was not taken place and still doesn't fully take place, but it was kind of the first start of the initiation. And then in 1960, the assassination of two political activists took place. And this day that they were assassinated and that it was ordered is now the is what became the Women Against, or not Women Against Violence, but the termination of Violence Against Women Day that we're talking about today. And I'll go over that in a little bit more detail in the next slide. And then in 1990, the International Bill of Rights for Women was created, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Violence against women is not mentioned in the convention. However, Article 6 requires that states parties shall all take appropriate measures, including legislation to suppress all forms of traffic in women and exploitation of prostitution of women. And then in 1991, the first 16 days of activism against gender-based violence took place from November 25th and the December 10th, which November 25th is the International Day to Eliminate Violence Against Women. Or technically now I believe it's the 26th, but at that time it was the 25th. And December 10th is the International Human Rights Day. And on that occasion, 1 million signatures were collected from 124 countries demanding the United Nations World Conference on Human Rights formally recognize gender-based violence as a human rights issue. And then in 1994, the United Nations Commission on Human Rights adopted a mandate to integrate the rights of women into the human rights framework with the goal of tackling violence against women. It also establishes and appoints the first UN Special Rapporteur on violence against women and its causes and consequences, which was Miss Radhika Kumaraswamy. I probably pronounced that wrong, so excuse me. And she was from Sri Lanka. And so a little bit more about this day. It was in honor of the Mirabelle sisters that were assassinated by the Dominican Republic, or they were from the Dominican Republic, and they were assassinated due to the request of the country's ruler. And on December 20th in 1993, the General Assembly adopted the Declaration of Elimination of Violence Against Women through the resolution and paved a path towards eradicating violence against women and girls worldwide. And finally, on February 7th, 2000, the General Assembly adopted the resolution officially designating November 26th as the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And in doing so, inviting governments, international organizations, as well as NGOs to join together and organize activities designed to raise public awareness on the issue every year. And so some causes of violence these are only a few, but there's definitely many. A big one is culturally. So in many cultures, women are looked down upon compared to the men. And even if they aren't necessarily looked down upon, women are treated less than, which kind of goes into the other ones. So education, different levels of education. In certain countries, women still don't, or girls still don't have the full rights of an education, whereas they still send the boys off. Also, just having different levels of education, one person thinking they're smarter than the other can lead to violence on either way. So thinking they're dumber or smarter, either way, can lead to violence between two people. And then also economic, women being paid more could lead to violence due to anger of the stereotypes that men have to be the breadwinners. But also women being paid less kind of further shows the hierarchy that the pay world has kind of created of men always being paid more than women. And then environmental, so alcohol, drugs, and toxic masculinity, being around that or taking part in that can all lead to different types of violence. And lastly, witnessing or being abused, especially as a child, has led to people being more violent or accepting violence towards them. And now on to how violence against women is today. So 4 out of 5 women have been harassed or assaulted, and I believe this is worldwide, not just in the US. And 1 of 5 women have experienced attempted or completed rape. Total, not just out of the 4 of the 5 women that have been harassed or assaulted. And to kind of continue on that, violence and sexual orientation has a link. Bisexual and transgender women, also transgender men, are most likely to be raped, sexually assaulted, physically assaulted, and stalked. 46% of bisexual women have been raped, and 47% of transgender people are sexually assaulted at some point in their life. And for types of violence against women, a big one is partner violence. So 1/3 of the population of women have experienced sexual or physical violence by their partner. And then human trafficking, 80% of victims trafficked across international borders are women. And pregnancy is also a huge part of women's lives, and 1/4 of people that while being pregnant have experienced sexual or physical violence. Those ones are a little bit more common in the US and more talked about, but genital mutilation is not really talked about in the US, but it is still a huge issue across the world. 200 million women and girls have been, their genitals have been cut or like, I don't know the appropriate word to use for this situation, but currently 200 million women and girls have experienced that. And child marriage is also a huge issue. It does take place in the US, but it takes place outside of the US a lot more frequently. 15 million girls before the age 18 are married yearly. And femicide, 91% of females murdered by men, they happen to already know each other. So there was a link, they were boyfriend and girlfriend, or the female rejected the man, whatever it was. A lot of females murdered knew the men before they were murdered. And I'll pass it over to Jessica.
All right, so in this section, I am going to be talking about options for the victims, and then you can go to the next slide. So I just first wanted to say this quote: "Perpetrators of abuse often make their victims believe that they are somehow responsible for their own abuse. Such misplaced notions shift the blame of the abuse from the abuser to the abusee." So I just wanted to mention that if you are a victim of domestic violence, you are not to blame for the things happening to you. You're not at fault, the abuser is. So you can go to the next slide. Okay, so the options for women are listed on the slide. So the first option I found in my research was a hotline website dedicated to domestic violence victims. This website has the national hotline, legal resources, local help like finding shelters in your area, and it also helps you create a path towards safety. Another option is staying at a trusted friend or family's house, maybe even one where your abuser is least likely to find you. Until you are able to get back on your feet, it is safe to do so. Making sure that you are in a safe environment is key. This next option is directed towards illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants are often reluctant to call for help in fear of being deported or punished, and so they often endure the abuse that they are experiencing. If this is you or someone you know, there are laws protecting domestic violence victims, regardless of your status in the United States. So you will still have access to free or low-cost lawyers and legal help, so you are still provided with the help you need to escape the abuse that you are experiencing. Some abusers may be lenient with your use of technology, but I would still tread lightly when looking up a women's shelter near you. This is still a viable option and will keep you from being homeless, especially if you don't have the option of staying with somebody else. But I would just make sure that you erase any evidence that might tell your abuser you're looking for a way out. Lastly, letting your healthcare provider will allow them to not only treat your injuries, but also refer you to a safer and better place. And then you can go to the next slide. So this last section is going to be me talking about how you can help victims, even if you are not one yourself. So the options you have are, the main thing you can do is listen. Listening to their stories and their feelings will help them feel validated and will also let them let go of the residual guilt or feelings about the abuse that they endured. Another thing is standing against rape culture. So rape culture is a normalization of rape in our country, and that is definitely something that is still a problem even today. There are people making jokes about it, people that are normalizing the abuse or harassment that they may see on the streets, just thinking it as just another normal day, and that is something that we should not be accepting as normal. Another thing is to learn the signs of abuse and watch out for friends and family who may be experiencing abuse. Some people are scared for their safety to admit that they're experiencing abuse, or they may feel that they are at fault, so they feel no need to let anybody know. So recognizing abuse will definitely make things easier for them and make sure that they are still safe while also providing them with an option to escape this abuse. Lastly is starting a conversation and spreading awareness. This option is why Julia and I wanted to have a presentation on this. Just feel it is part of our duty to spread awareness and help victims in need. Then you can go to the next slide. So in conclusion, this problem is a serious issue that needs to be known. Victims deserve justice and should not be fearing for their lives. This day is here to show victims that they are not alone and we are here for them. If you or someone you know needs help, contact the national hotline at 800-799-SAFE. And then that is it for our presentation today.
I did want to share, for some reason, I don't know why I didn't include it, but it just occurred to me that the national symbol of needing help is just putting your thumb in and closing your fingers. And so just knowing that sign, so that way if you're in a situation and you're outside with your abuser, being able to do that symbol and trying to alert people. But that's only going to work if we're sharing that is a universal sign for needing help. And so I did want to share that, so that way even if you aren't in that situation, or like never are, that way if you see someone else doing that way you'll know.
Was there any questions that anybody had?
We will be posting the full presentation, if you missed part of it, on our website, and we will share that in the My Sierra app and our Instagram. Thank you for joining. We really appreciate it.